Hello everyone, my name is Hawa Sultani. I am a first-year MBA student at Simon Business School, part of University of Rochester. I am very excited to do the takeover today with the MBAchic blog. It is one of my favorite pages. It is a page that I followed as I was trying to figure out my MBA career. I'll tell you a little bit more about my story later on, but I will be showing you around today what it's like to deal with the impact of COVID-19, switching your in-person MBA experience to an online experience, what it's like to be an entrepreneur and owner of a small business, and how that's being impacted. So we have a lot to talk about. I'm very excited to show you what it's like to be in my shoes with all of this craziness, and hopefully I can give you guys some tips and advice on how to handle with the emotional stress and the changes that the world is currently experiencing. Stay tuned. Alrighty, so one of my biggest tips as we're quarantined, I hope you're quarantined and you're staying home. While you're working from home or doing school from home, try to get up in the morning and get dressed up like it's a regular day. It really, really helps with the productivity and the motivation. Alrighty, so a little bit about my background. I was raised in Queens, New York. I am a proud child of two immigrants. My parents came out to America in the 80s. And when I was around 13 years old, we moved out to Sacramento, California. That was a turning point in my life. I think this is something every first generation child can relate to, is that things are a little bit more tough for us than other people. And when I say that, what I mean is, especially if you come from a conservative background, or if you are a female or a first generation college student, you don't know your full potential. There's not many role models that you can look up to. And I had a lot of doubt in myself, and I didn't think that there was much that I can do or become, because I didn't have this whole concept of what you see is what you believe. So when I grew up, I didn't think there was much for me until I moved out to California, and I volunteered at a clinic where I saw females that were nurses and PAs and doctors that came from the same ethnic background as me, making a difference in our community. And I fell in love with it. I loved my time there, and I committed myself into the healthcare field, and I wanted to become a doctor at the age of 13. And so I went to high school, was highly involved, president of my school, then got a full ride to go to UC Davis. While I was at UC Davis, I got my degree in neuroscience. I did everything you could possibly do under the sun to get into medical school. I loved it. It wasn't even for me to do it for my applications. I was part of clinics that's helped underserved communities. I worked in the ER. I did tons and tons of research. I did lab research for autoimmune conditions and also skin cancer. And then I was a part of clubs that helped minority students to get into medical school so we could diversify the pool of physicians. While I did all of this, I graduated from UC Davis, and then I got an offer to work at the UC Davis Health System, which is their hospital, for their dermatology department, to become a clinical trials manager. While being a clinical trials manager, you lead a team of residents, physicians, and students, and you basically test the efficacy of drugs. And that's a partnership that you basically lead with a pharmaceutical company. I did that for about 3 to 4 years, and then I enjoyed it. I learned so much from it, but at the same time, it got very routine. I realized the office life is not for me, and I moved on to another project, which is where I joined my mom and her business. She owns a restaurant in downtown Sacramento. She's owned it for 9 years. She specifically hires refugee women. She works with an organization to support them and for them to become financially independent. And I loved everything about the whole concept of the business, but I also saw that there was so much potential for it, even though I was so impressed as an immigrant woman, where she was able to lead and run this business in an industry that you only last for 2 years, I noticed that there was areas of where she could scale it and even become a franchise. So I joined the team, even though I do not know how to cook. I was very determined, and I turned this mom and pop shop into, and still am working on turning into something a bit more trendy. We created a digital presence for it. I standardized their operations and created logos and branding, did the whole 9 yards. And while I was doing it, I fell in love with the whole business aspect of it and wanted to apply to business school. I applied to business school, but I also had an offer to go to med school. And then I got an offer to do a dual program, to do an MD MBA. And while I was making these decisions, I decided that I wanted to only stick to business school. And the reason why I chose that was because I wanted to make a difference and make a bigger impact in our world and to help our underserved minority communities. And in order for me to do that, I wasn't going to be able to make the impact that I wanted by saving and helping lives. I knew I needed to build a platform and support other minority and disadvantaged students to get a chance to go to higher education schools or to get their ideas and businesses funded and supported. And so I decided to just pick the business route and make that bigger impact that I wanted for myself and for me to see in this world. Now, everyone has their cup of tea. And so for some people, med school is the route. And I support them, especially during this time of COVID-19. They are the true heroes. But I'm still very happy with my decision of only choosing to go to business school. I go to Simon Business School up in upstate New York. They are one of the first business schools to offer a STEM MBA, which was something I knew was going to make me marketable as a woman going into corporate America. They have a Vectra Fund, a $2 million fund where you get to invest in startup companies, and that's the space I want to go into. I have an obsession with Shark Tank, and I want to be able to fund female founders. I want to be able to fund minority startup companies, and so for me to get in that space, I knew VC was the right career path, which is also where I will be interning this summer. I am very happy with my decision going to business school. I'm happy with the school that I'm going to, and I'm happy to give advice to anyone out there about pivoting careers, about making the right decision for yourself and how to commit to that and how to be able to stand by your decision, especially if you're a first generation student. There's a lot of difficulty that comes with that because you always have to keep your community and family members in mind. And I'm also happy to support any women out there that want to go into the investment space. There isn't a large presence for us, so we need to work better and to do better as a whole for us to be in that space. So any questions, go ahead and send it my way throughout the day, and I'm happy to answer them. Alrighty, so as COVID-19 hits, we are taking a huge hit as a small business owner. We do have a restaurant. The restaurants are on lockdown. We can't dine in anybody. And right now, I've been working day and night for the past 2 weeks to figure out ways to keep our employees employed and avoid the unemployment route. And a lot of them depend on that salary. So I have been strategizing. And one of the first ideas we had was to launch a meal prep plan. People who don't want to go grocery shopping or have seniors and loved ones or healthcare workers, they can basically buy meals at a very low cost and they could store them in their fridge. And we're also offering curbside pickup and delivery for our original customers that may be craving some Crest. So I'm going to take you guys to the restaurant and we'll take a look of what is going on and show you guys a before and after of the city and the impact of it.
Cafe, the female-owned restaurant that hires mostly female refugees, is changing how they're doing things too.
We have all these groceries. Instead of doing our regular menu, what if we develop these new meals to go plan that we could provide?
They're offering
So the first stop today is going to be heading out to the restaurant. We are very excited because we will be donating over 200 meals out to the healthcare workers at UC Davis. We just wanted to thank them for all that they're doing and the crazy amount of hours and effort that they're putting in to help our community. And we're also today going to be launching our sponsor a meal link, which will be on our website for anyone who wants to donate and for us to kind of continue this giving back to the community, not just healthcare workers, but seniors and any sort of nonprofit organizations that need support. All right, so the next part of my day is going to consist of meetings. I will be meeting with the Simon School Vectra Fund. We are a $2 million fund and we invest in startup companies. I am the incoming president, so I will be meeting with my new management team and we're going to discuss the mission, our goals for the upcoming year, and what we basically want to do with the organization as we get impacted by COVID-19. We have to get in contact with our portfolio companies and make sure that they're doing okay, and also basically figure out a game plan of how we're going to bring in some of these new startups and what would be some of the smart investments that we should take into consideration for the upcoming year. So I will take you along how that looks like virtually, and you could get a sense of maybe if you want to go into investments or not.
How can we take the advantage of technology to fundamentally change something which is not that
What inspires you to be an entrepreneur? I think one of the biggest mistakes we make in advising younger people is to say, figure out what you like to do, figure out what industry you want to work in. I think what people need to do is figure out who they are. When you ask yourself, that question, who are you? You should at least know what kind of spaces you like to work. Are you a team member? Are you a leader? Are you creative? Are you analytical? Do you like numbers, or are you a poet? And for me, I am creative. I like to be my own boss. I like to scale things. I like to get ideas going and not have to go through 50 approvals. And so for me, an entrepreneur is what kind of sings to my heart and where I thrive. And I knew that very early on when I didn't like working 9 to 5 or working in the office space and working in the whole corporate world. It wasn't for me. I felt like I was put in a box. How do I stay motivated? I always, when I take on a project, there's always a purpose behind it. I don't just do it to get X results. I do it because it's for the greater good. And that keeps me very in check when there are some nights where I feel like giving up. I know to keep going because this isn't a personal success. It's going to be a community success, or it's going to be a team success. And I know someone else depends on my effort. And that is what really keeps me accountable for my actions and how to stay motivated. So that's my biggest suggestion. The next question is, how did I decide to go from med school to business school? Earlier on, I did say why. It's because I wanted to make a bigger impact and get into the VC space, and specifically in healthcare and tech. But how I made that decision was a whole year of deferring my decision to go to med school and committing time for myself. And I traveled the world. My Instagram page, as you can see, there's a lot of photos and there are stories to it where I really just reflected upon my story, my background, why I did things, what got me excited on some of the projects I've worked on, and where would I feel success and feel like I could keep going when there's some long, hard days that come forward. And for me, I decided to travel and to find that voice and to kind of block out those outside noises that always felt the need to give their opinion. And I suggest the same for some. My biggest advice about personal statements. So many people do not know their story. As easy as this sounds, a lot of people cannot put the pieces together. When you look back in your life and what school you went to, why you studied the specific major that you studied, or why you ended up picking the industry that you were working in and now you want to pivot, or whatever your story may be, a lot of people can't make sense of it. And when someone says, tell me about yourself, they can't say it in a minute, or they can't write about it. So my biggest advice is to take a step back and kind of create a timeline, put the pieces together, and figure out important events in your life that made you realize that business school was the right route for you. And when you are applying to that program, please take a moment to understand what makes that program so special and how you can connect to it. Okay, so the next question I have on here is about pivoting careers. My biggest advice for anyone who's kind of maybe feeling fatigue or lack of excitement with their current job is to take a step back and ask yourself, am I working with the right company? Is it the team that I'm with, or is it the wrong industry? Sometimes it could be a people factor and you pick the right career, but it's just not with the right environment, or it could actually just be a moment in your life where you need to pivot in order for you to grow, and that could be a blessing too. But in order to kind of figure out which way to pivot into, that's going to require a lot of self-reflection. It's going to require some hard questions and maybe some outside help and even networking, where you can kind of explore and figure out where your talents are and what makes you kind of feel excited and want to go through some of the tough and rough days ahead in whatever career you end up pivoting into. All right, everyone, I'm going to call it a night. I hope you all had a good time watching my takeover, and you were able to get a little bit of advice and tips on what it's like to be an MBA student, about pivoting careers, and even pursuing your own business. I want to thank the MBAchic blog for allowing me to do this, and I hope you all have a fabulous night. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay quarantined, and be positive. Just know that this too shall pass. Night.